Welcome everybody to another episode of Howling with the Wolfe. Um, as you see, second week in a row, we've got the Christmas tree behind us, holiday season. We're gonna do it holiday style. Have a few fun things to talk about. Um, I was the subject to Ryan Fitzpatrick's jokes today, and I want to give you guys an inside the locker room of everything that happened and why it involved me showing Ryan Fitzpatrick why he's a better quarterback than me. I want to give you guys an insight into something that's very interesting to me, the Aqib Talib trading card mystery. And I also want to touch on what we learned about the 2019 Dolphins and Brian Flores as a coach. So let's get into the action. I also want to talk about the Patriots Spygate 2 towards the end of this episode. And since Lamar Jackson is playing on Thursday Night Football, I want to get some thoughts on Lamar Jackson and the MVP race. So, very packed show. We'll be moving quickly. As always, if you have any questions, fire them away in the chat, and I'll shut up for a few moments and divert my attention to your question, and we'll try to appease what you guys want to talk about. So, first things first, I just want to go ahead and jump into the action. So, I played football growing up, but I did not play quarterback. And today, Ryan Fitzpatrick realized that. I was in practice today. We were inside the bubble. Dolphins were there, and we had a session. Typically, when we're inside the bubble, we're watching the guys practice, warm up, whatnot. So, wide receivers coach Carl Durrell decides to throw me a pass, and I've got good hands. I'm pretty solid with the hands, so I catch the ball. The trouble comes when I have to throw it back. So I wind up with my throw. I play baseball, so I got a big wind up, like maybe a Tim Tebow wind up. So I wind up and I throw it, and it's not necessarily accurate. I'm a little bit to the side, and I'm like, okay. I can see him chuckling a little bit. He throws me another fastball. I catch it right, throw it off to the left side, a little duck. So eventually I start to get it going. I start to get some speed. I had to throw the football in a year or two. So I start to get it going. I start to get some flow with it, and everything's going. But I see Ryan Fitzpatrick. He is cracking up. He's laughing at my throwing motion. Brian Flores, Chad O'Shea is laughing. Adam Beasley, a Miami Herald writer, and another writer was also throwing the ball. They joined in and caught some passes and threw some balls to Carl Durrell. So I go up to Fitz after practice, and I was actually going to ask him about something different. And the first thing he says to me is like, "Nah, man, we got to talk about that throwing motion." So he gave me his judgment of my throwing motion, and essentially he said that I had some power in my throw, but that throwing motion needed a lot of work. One other writer referenced Tim Tebow and said it was a Tim Tebow type throwing motion, and Fitz enjoyed that. He laughed for a while and shook his head. So I may be the Tim Tebow of throwers in the media spectrum, and I felt like that was something that gave everybody levity. So the Dolphins win this week against the Giants. I'm taking full credit for the levity of everybody laughing at my motion. So that's one thing I definitely wanted to talk about and kind of share you guys a little behind the scenes about some light moments out there. It also showed me just a different perspective of quarterbacks. There's not many quarterbacks who would spend the time and like laugh about that type of stuff and joke in the middle of a week. Kind of shows you that you don't have to be all business. And everybody had a crack out of that, this week at practice. So that's the one side inside the locker room moment. I'm going to tease the second one, and then I'm going to talk about it towards the end of the episode so y'all can stick around and not just turn it out after this. But Aqib Talib got traded to the Dolphins in late October, I believe. He has never played for the Dolphins. He doesn't even have a jersey number. He doesn't even have a locker room in the facility. But yet, we had a Aqib Talib sighting this week, and I'll tell you guys about it towards the back end of the episode. So, what I did want to share a little bit from the football perspective is we're getting towards the end of the season. We've talked a lot about the future on this platform, on ESPN.com, and I'm actually having a story coming out on Saturday, plug, on ESPN.com about the Heisman candidates and the Dolphins' chances of drafting either of those players. Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Chase Young, and in 2021, Justin Fields. So I think that that's something that you guys definitely want to tune into. If you're curious about who the Dolphins quarterback of the future is going to be, or who they're going to take in their first-round pick, I'll lay out some cases. I got scouting reports from Dan Orlovsky, ESPN college football analyst and NFL analyst. He gave me some good stuff there, so definitely check that out. But for now, I wanted to kind of give some, I guess, initial thoughts, not to conclude the season, but to get some thoughts on, 13 weeks into the season, what we've learned about this team. And, I think that I was talking to someone earlier today, and he mentioned, how's the season been like? And I was like, man, if I told you how the season was like in September compared to how it is now, you wouldn't believe it was the same team. They're 3-10, they're a bad team, but they were like worst team in NFL history at the start of the season, and now they're just a regular bad team. But I still think we've learned a lot, and I think the biggest thing for me, and it's number one on what I've learned about this team, is I've learned that they may, no guarantee, may have found a head coach. And I think that we knew very little about Brian Flores when he took the job, and I think that we're learning a lot more of him now. There's still a lot that we don't know, but I think, just seeing, and I think some fans would agree with me, just seeing him on the sideline, just seeing the way he's brought this team that was 0-7, that some people thought was on the verge of quitting, together to the fact that they, beat a team in the Eagles who may end up winning the NFC East. They won 2 games in a row, and they've got a decent chance to win their 4th or 5th game against the Giants and the Bengals this week. I think that's something that nobody would have expected. So, I don't want to heap too much praise because they're 3-10. So they're still, like I said, a regular bad team. But I do think that, that is something that we may have learned about this team. And it makes me excited going into 2020 about what this team could look like when they get more talent and players who, more than 10, 15, 20 players that deserve to be starting players in the NFL. So that's something that I think is a lesson and something to look forward to in 2020. The other thing that I think we've learned about this team is that Josh Rosen is not the answer for starting quarterback. We had a lot of question marks coming into the season because Josh Rosen was acquired for a second-round pick. We were like, oh, is he going to be the guy? He could be the answer. We could use our first-round picks on something else, and he could be the guy who was a first-round pick in 2018, and nah. I think the Dolphins have given you a resounding answer about how they feel about Josh Rosen, and whether you think it's fair to Josh or not, that's another topic for another day, but I think that he is, as J Sports Network just says, he is not the chosen one for Miami. I do think that, this offseason will be interesting about what they do with Josh Rosen, particularly if Ryan Fitzpatrick decides to come back. He's 37 years old, and he's really in a position where if he wants to come back, I think the Dolphins will welcome him back. Whether they draft a quarterback in the first round or not, I think there's a role for him as a backup or a starter on this team. The guys love him. He just got elevated up to a captain about a week or two ago, and you can't have enough good guys in the locker room like Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I've covered several quarterbacks in my career, and I don't know if I've seen a quarterback be one of the guys more than Ryan Fitzpatrick. And what I mean by that is, going up to offensive linemen and smacking them on the back, or eating lunch with tight ends, or just little stuff that you think may not make a difference, or you don't think it's that important, or we might not write about it. I can tell you what, those players, they love it. So, I think that there is a decent chance if Ryan Fitzpatrick wants to be back, he's going to be back. So what does that mean for Josh Rosen? I think that there's a very good chance that they shop him in a trade this offseason and they just get rid of him for whatever they can get. I think that it was sort of a trial and error sort of thing. They tried to take their shot, and I think they realized they don't work. They haven't given him another chance, and I don't think he plays another game for the Dolphins unless Ryan Fitzpatrick gets an injury or really, really struggles. So I think what we've got for Josh Rosen is what we've seen so far, and his future is really bleak. So I think that's the second thing we've learned, that Josh Rosen's not the answer. The third thing that we've learned is that the holes we thought this team had are larger than ever. Offensive line, edge rusher, and quarterback. Those are the three biggest holes on this team, and I think the holes have got even bigger. There is no edge rusher on this team that you feel comfortable about being the starter next year. Vince Beagle should be a contributor. Maybe it's a third edge rusher or a fourth edge rusher and a special teams player. His energy, his work ethic, his vibe earns him that. But I think that, Charles Harris, I don't know if he makes the roster next year. Taco Charlton, maybe he comes back as a rotational pass rusher. But edge rusher, they need to hit that position in free agency in the draft and hit it hard. Offensive line, I've said this time and time again, but I wouldn't be surprised if they need 4, maybe even 5 new offensive linemen before this team is truly ready to compete. They're going to need a left tackle. Right now they've had Michael Dieter at left guard. He got benched last week. He was a third-round pick this year, but who knows if he's going to ever be a starter here. Daniel Kilgore is 31 years old. I don't think that he's going to be here for long. Maybe he stays for another year, but I don't know if he's going to be here to see the other side of the rebuild. At right guard, there's been a turntable of guys, and I don't think either of those guys, Evan Boehm or Shaq Calhoun, has a solidified job as a starter next season. So, Jesse Davis might be your only player at right tackle where you can say, hey, I can see him for sure being the starter next season. So that means, like edge rusher, they're going to have to hit that position, bang, 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 throughout free agency and throughout the draft. So I think that's something that, we have learned about this team for sure. And quarterback, like I mentioned before, Josh Rosen's not the answer. Obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick is 37 years old. He's going to be 38 next year. He's not the long-term answer. They've got to draft a quarterback. And the question becomes, can they get a quarterback in the 2020 draft without settling? Do they have to go up and get their guy and trade a bunch of picks like a Burrow? Do they feel comfortable with a Herbert? Do they take a risk on a guy like a Tua? That's why this offseason is going to be so exciting. But I think those are the 3 biggest lessons we've learned about this team. And I think that, another thing that I think we've learned about this team is that they're going to be like a Brian Flores-centered team. And I think the fact that they're already in the bottom of the NFL in penalties as far as like being disciplined, that's something that is something that's commendable. And I think that when you look at this team, when they're good, they're going to have characteristics of being a hybrid team. A lot of guys playing in packages, a lot of guys being in position where they only play 30 or 40% of the snaps, but they have a key role on this team, and guys that are drafted position specifically for a role. Eric Rowe was moved to safety so that he can guard tight ends. I think you'll see a lot more of that in the future. So I think those are some of the lessons I've learned about this team, and it makes you look at 2020 with wider eyes because more talent is coming, and maybe, just maybe, there will be more excitement for this team coming forward. So I have a couple questions here that I wanted to go ahead and get to. Touchdown Titan says, miss you for covering the Titans. Appreciate you following me, man. He said, thank them for Tannehill for me. I do want to talk about Tannehill briefly because he is balling. Did the Dolphins lose the Minka trade with 8-5 Steelers? I think so. So let me go ahead and jump on those two from Touchdown Titan, the Minka trade and Ryan Tannehill. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and jump on those. And first things first, Minka Fitzpatrick trade. I wasn't a fan of the trade when they made it. I am of the belief that good solidified players, which I thought that, Minka Fitzpatrick had did enough to show that, hey, this is what he's going to be in the league. Those players, you don't give up for potential players. So I get they made the trade. They wanted Minka Fitzpatrick to fit into a box, a role that they wanted him to do. In fact, they actually wanted him to do the role that Eric Rowe has succeeded into, which is play essentially a strong safety role, be in the box, cover tight ends, and do that in a way where teams are not able to utilize their top playmaker when they have a tight end there. And Minka, simply put, got tired of being used in so many roles. He felt like his versatility was overused. He wanted to be a free safety or a corner and just stick at that position. And you can have your arguments about whether Minka was wrong for not just sucking it up and being a team guy and doing what he's saying, or whether the Dolphins were wrong if they were stubborn and didn't make it work. I'm of the belief that you make good players fitting your scheme, not the other way around. And I think that they didn't do that, and I think that's why they traded him. And now you got Minka Fitzpatrick, who's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. He's been balling. He's got 4 interceptions. He's got forced fumbles and defensive touchdowns, and he's one of the key reasons why the Steelers are going to be a playoff team. And yeah, that pick's going to be in the 20s. So they may have thought it was a top 10 pick when they first got it. It's going to be in the 20s, and yeah, I think they lost that trade because I don't think you're getting the Minka Fitzpatrick player in the 20s. So, you swing and you miss. They swung and missed in the Josh Rosen trade. I think, they may still do the Minka Fitzpatrick trade if they had to do it again, but I wouldn't. There's been some decisions they've made that I think were not great that I would not have done, but it's a rebuilding team. They think they're a couple years away, and they felt like those picks were the most important thing. So let's see what they do with them. Chris Greer, you're on the clock. It's your time, boy. Your time, my guy. You're in a position where, you control the draft. You can get a quarterback, you can get an edge rusher, you can get an offensive tackle, and what the Dolphins look like in the future is based on what he does. So, we'll see how he maximizes these picks, but I do think initially they may have lost that Minka Fitzpatrick trade. Other question, Ryan Tannehill. One, I'll get this out of the way. I don't think the Dolphins were wrong to get rid of Ryan Tannehill. I do think that, essentially where they were in their situation, Ryan Tannehill had essentially run out of time to prove that he was the long-term guy in Miami. He got 7 years here in Miami. He was a average to slightly above average quarterback here. And I think when they had a new coach in Brian Flores, they got rid of Adam Gase, who was a big Tannehill supporter. I think that was a sign that, hey, we've got to start anew and do something fresh and do something different. And they can't sell that with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. So I don't think the Dolphins should regret their decision. They shouldn't second guess it. It was the right decision for them in that moment. That being said, the knock on Ryan Tannehill had always been that you needed to put a great offensive line and a great running game around him for him to succeed. And guess what? Or a great defense. Guess what? He gets to Tennessee. He's got Derrick Henry, who's a monster of a back. He's got a really, really good defense. That Titans defense, I think, is one of the best in the league, and it's underrated with a lot of the players they got on that unit. And they've really created a system with him where he can succeed in play action and look like the really great, talented quarterback, which he's shown flashes of in Miami. So I just think it's a perfect spot for him. I do think there will be some regression to the mean at some point with him. That being said, he was never a bad quarterback in Miami. I just think that Miami folks, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Miami folks just got, they just wanted something new. They wanted something fresh. They were tired of saying mediocre play from their team and from their quarterback. So I think both sides needed a fresh start, and I think they got it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Let's see. Got a question from Jay Smart saying, anything about the Dolphins running back? Yes, all of them. New. Completely. I think that, you came into the season with King and Drake, Kalen Ballage, Mark Walden, and thought that one of those three guys were going to end up, doing something, and all of them are gone in some extent. King and Drake traded, Mark Walden arrested and waived, and Kalen Ballage injured, and he didn't play well while he was in there. Patrick Laird, I mean, he's been a surprise and a fun player for the Dolphins, but, just to be real, I don't think that he's going to be a long-term answer for them as a lead back. I think he's, maybe a number 3 back, a guy who can play a few snaps as a receiving back, play some special teams. I think that's what his role is long-term. I think they draft a back, and I think they probably sign a back. And I'll drop something on you guys that, I know it may open some eyes, but I would love to see if this team is ready to compete, them draft a back and then bring Frank Gore back and let him end his career here in Miami. I think there would be some interest from him in doing that. His son's going to play at FAU next year. If he's willing to play another year, which I'm not sure certain if he will, but if he is, you're ready to compete. If you got past that point, maybe you bring a young back in and let Frank mentor him and let them split the load. I think that would be a great way for them to handle the backfield. I think he still got it, as we're seeing in Buffalo, and I think that would be something that I would love to see. I'm a Frank fan, so I would love to see it. But that's maybe how I think they could go about handling that running back room. So yeah, I got T in here saying Tannehill needed a change of scenery. That system fits. I think you're absolutely right. I think that you're looking at a situation where Ryan Tannehill had always been around behind a shaky offensive line. I think some players in that locker room lost confidence in Ryan Tannehill. I think Ryan Tannehill lost some confidence in that offensive line and that locker room, and it was just time. It was just time. I mean, let's just be frank. If Ryan Tannehill was behind this offensive line with this team, I don't know if he would look as good as Ryan Fitzpatrick has, just being frank. And I just think that's the situation. So, perfect situation, win-win for both teams. The Dolphins got off of some of the contract and got a draft pick. The Titans were able to save their season after Marcus and kind of proved that he wasn't the guy. So, win-win for both sides. I'm going to share with you guys. I got a question from Luis Velasquez. He's asking about the MVP rankings, and I'll go ahead and answer these right now for you. And I'm going to share with you guys my last inside the locker room moment, and we're going to go ahead and bounce. MVP rankings. Lamar Jackson is going to be playing in about 15 minutes on Thursday Night Football. He is my leader in the MVP race. I love watching Lamar Jackson play. He's actually my favorite player to watch as a fan in the NFL. I just think that, just from a visual perspective, the way he plays the game as an athletic specimen, everybody's going to make the Michael Vick comparison, but I think that he is a better passer than Michael Vick ever was. And I think that the way he threatens defenses is unlike any other quarterback has ever threatened defenses, I believe, just with his dual threat ability and the way that you keep defensive coordinators off guard. And I think that's something that is extremely exciting. I hope that he continues to play his style, play his way. And the other side of this, and I said this on Twitter, I think last week, I know growing up, I saw a lot of athletic quarterbacks, athletic black quarterbacks who were forced to switch to DB, receiver, running back because they weren't the prototypical quarterback that played in the NFL. And I think Lamar Jackson, there's a lot of quarterbacks who come before him, even some in the league right now, like Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes. But Lamar Jackson, the way he does it, the way he is truly 100% himself and truly 100%, what a lot of people who look like him identify as, I think that's a huge step. And I think there's a lot of people, middle school kids, elementary school kids, high school kids, who are going to stick and play quarterback and we're number 8 because of Lamar Jackson. And I'm pumped about that. So, he's number 1 for me. Russell Wilson's number 2. I think Russell Wilson's having a heck of a season, and he would be the MVP in most seasons for me if Lamar Jackson wasn't having the year he is. So he's number 2 for me. I was a huge fan of the Christian McCaffrey fan base, but his team has dumped off. So his fantasy run has dumped off as well. So I think number 3 for me would be Dalvin Cook out of Minnesota. I think that the way that he's carried the load for that team. I know he got banged up last couple of weeks, but I think that, non-quarterbacks should get a little bit more love in that. So I think it's a two-headed monster with those 2 players, and I think number 3 for me would be Dalvin Cook. But I do think it'll be Russell or Lamar, and my vote is in Lamar. And by the way, Lamar, I appreciate you in advance for winning me 2 of my fantasy football leagues. My semifinals start tonight. And I'm playing you in both of those leagues, and I appreciate you in advance for giving me this bread. Big trust. I think last thing I want to share with you guys is inside the locker room. Other thing, Aqib Talib. I mentioned earlier, Aqib Talib got traded to the Dolphins. He's never played a snap. He doesn't have a number. He doesn't have a helmet. He doesn't have a locker. But he made an appearance in the locker room this week in the form of a trading card. Let me explain. So Wednesday, I am standing in the locker room, and there is a TV monitor by the weigh-in section of the Dolphins locker room, and I spot in the left corner of that TV corner a trading card, a Aqib Talib trading card. And I feel like I'm pretty observant. I can't guarantee you, but I feel like I would have noticed that if it would have happened a week ago, 2 weeks ago, even a month ago. So I asked a couple people with the Dolphins, I asked a couple people around, and nobody had seen it before. So my thought is that it came up this week. So somebody in that Dolphins locker room has planted an Aqib Talib trading card, clearly as a joke, on the TV. So I made it my mission, with the help of a couple other reporters, to ask around and try to figure out who put this Aqib Talib trading card in. It's probably because it's the end of the season and we've got a 3-10 team and we don't have a ton else of storylines to follow, that this was so intriguing to us. But this is how I spent at least 15 minutes in my locker room session. And I think that, what I found is we still don't know. We still don't know who the card belongs to or who put it up. Our best guess was Ryan Fitzpatrick, because Ryan Fitzpatrick had made a joke earlier this season that they were winning and they were 2-0 because it was the post-Aqib Talib era. And that was hilarious. So I figured, funny guy, could have been him, asked him, he denied it. So I'm not sure if he's lying or if he really didn't do it. Asked a few offensive linemen, they denied it. Asked a couple DBs, they denied it. Asked a linebacker, they denied it. Receiver, they denied it. So I've asked probably about 10 or 12 guys in the locker room along with other folks, and all denials. So either somebody's lying or it's got to be somebody that I didn't expect. So I'll keep you guys updated. I'm going to continue this mission because I'm the reporter that you guys need, and this is the story that I feel like is very important to follow. And I will try to find out who is responsible for this Aqib Talib trading card. So as always, thank you guys for watching Howling with the Wolf. I'll be back here again next week, same time. I got to stay warm this week because I'm in New York. But thank you guys for joining. Share with your friends, and see you guys next week.